The Cosmic Desktop Alpha is finally out, after more than 2 years of development, a few delays, and a ton of blog posts from System 76. And I was fortunate enough to get an advanced ISO with the alpha of PopOS 24.04 running the Cosmic Desktop Alpha as well, and I've been playing around with it for a few days now. Now, I had been playing around with Cosmic since basically February, because that's when the alpha was supposed to come out. So I tested it in February, March, April, May, June, and July. So I am pretty familiar with how it works. Now, in the end, this alpha will not blow you away if you already use the GNOME-based version of Cosmic, or just regular GNOME or KDE or anything else. But it does show a lot of promise. And it is an important project for the Linux desktop in general. So let's see what this thing can actually do, what it can't do, and why it is an important project for the Linux desktop in general. And also why our sponsor is important, at least to me. This video is sponsored by Proton. You probably know about them. They make an all-in-one suite of privacy-focused tools for your email, online storage, calendars, contacts, VPN, and passwords. Everything is end-to-end and zero-access encrypted, and it is designed to make sure that your data stays yours. And Proton just launched a brand new tool for that entire online suite, and that's Proton Docs. If you've ever used Google Docs, you will be right at home here. It is your fully encrypted collaborative online word processor. You can edit a document with other people in real time, you can gather feedback thanks to comments and discussions, you can share these documents securely with full access control, and the best thing is, it's part of your Proton account, even a free account, and it's accessible straight from Proton Drive. As always, you can just click the link in the description below to get started with Proton, create your account, and start moving your life towards a more privacy-respectful solution. So first, let's talk desktop. The default will be very familiar to anyone who already used Cosmic on PopOS, as in the GNOME Plus extensions version of Cosmic. You have a bottom dock and a top panel. The dock has your app icons and access to the app library and the launcher. The top panel lets you access the workspaces, the apps, the time and date, and your notification tray. The launcher is basically your KRunner thing. You press the super key, you type what you want, and it will fetch it. Whether it's an app, an open window, a settings pages, but not if it's a file. We don't take too kindly to files around here. Now, the app library is still there as well. It's the GNOME app grid, but in a pop-up with customizable folders. You also get vertical workspaces, which you can activate with touchpad gestures, a 4-finger swipe up or down. And it is a one-to-one gesture, meaning that things move as you move your fingers on the touchpad, which is nice, but it is for now the only gesture in the entire desktop. They said they will add some more later, but I do hope they don't forget to add them to the toolkit itself, so you can go back between various pages in the settings or the App Store, for example, with just swiping 2 fingers back and forth. This is insanely useful, and you need it in Cosmic. Now, in the top panel, you get the notification tray by default, and it's accompanied by a bunch of individual applets. Each of these is actually its own little app, and it runs in its own process. And of course, developers will be able to write their own if they want to. The dock itself is also a little bit different, as it will display minimized apps in the same way as in macOS, as in the window you minimized is in its own little spot at the right of the dock. Windows aren't minimized to their apps icon. For now, it is not great, as you don't get the window names on hover or any thumbnail. So for example, File Manager or browser windows will just be indistinguishable here. But this will likely come in the future. What is really interesting in Cosmic is your ability to completely customize this layout, which is how it really differs from the current GNOME-based Cosmic implementation. The settings let you do whatever the hell you want to these panels and docks. They're not configured as generic panels, so you're stuck editing the top panel or the dock specifically, and you're stuck with this 2 panels configuration. But you can move any of these panels to any screen edge. You can move any applet from one to the other, you can size the panels how you want, you can make them fully transparent, you can replicate a Windows layout or the Ubuntu layout or anything else you'd like, And if you just want to have one single taskbar somewhere on your screen, you can make one of the panels transparent and auto-hide it after removing all of its applets. I'm sure at some point they will let you entirely disable one or the other of these panels, so you have a more elegant solution. At any rate, this is very customizable and very easy to set up, much in the same vein as what Cinnamon does with its own panel. You have a top section, a center one, and a bottom one, and you just move applets around from one to the next. You can also change the workspaces to be horizontal instead of vertical if you prefer, but this implementation kinda looks bad for now. Now, System76 said that they would like to have, at some point, some kind of third-party applet marketplace like the Get New Stuff thing that KDE has, which would be nice to add some other things to your panel. They're also aware that there is no current option to have a global menu because there is no real Linux standard to implement that. Some apps will just not follow it. Some packaging formats don't allow these apps to export these menus. So for now, they know about it, but it's not a priority. And also for now, you cannot make these panels span multiple displays. They are either visible on every single display or on one single display, but you cannot just stretch them across displays if your multi-monitor setup is trying to replicate an ultra-wide. That won't work. Still, it is a very robust desktop layout, very configurable, and one could say that Cosmic is reaching for the stars. No? Okay. Now, of course, one of the main advantages of PopOS was always its auto-tiling features. And they return here in Cosmic. You can obviously manually tile windows on screen edges or screen corners to half tile, maximize, or quarter tile, but you can also get that nice little auto-tiling applet in the top bar. You can turn it on for the current workspace and have a different behavior for other workspaces. You can even set that behavior for any new workspace that is created, since these are dynamic, like in GNOME. After that, you can either navigate using the arrow keys and the super key, you can move windows around with Shift plus Super and the arrow keys, or you can float a window with Super plus G. You can also use the mouse to do all of that, and you have a nice visual hint around the currently focused window as well. You can also stack windows by placing them on top of one another, and this will add tabs in the title bars of this window. These stacks will persist even if you untile the desktop, and you can create these stacks even with floating windows. If a stack is currently focused, all the new apps that you open will open their windows inside of the currently focused stack, and you can remove things from the stack by just dragging them out of it. It's basically the experience you already know in PopOS with GNOME, but it feels a lot more fluid. It's that nice compromise between a regular, normal floating Windows desktop and a tiling window manager. You get one or the other depending on what you need at a specific point, and that's fantastic. And this is something I would really like to have on KDE right now. And yes, this is a call for help. If you know about anything that lets you get this kind of features on KDE as easily as what you can get them on Cosmic or PopOS, I would really love you to tell me in the comments. Now, other window management features include the usual Alt-Tab or Super plus Tab, which just invokes the launcher with a list of open windows. It is not the best design. You don't have window previews, for example, so if you have multiple browser windows or multiple file managers, you're not going to know which one you want. You can also just open the launcher and type the name of the app to get to it, since it lists all open windows. Finally, you have the dock. You can click on an application's icon to bring that window to focus, and if you have multiple windows, you get some small previews that you can click. As I said, minimized windows go in a special place on the dock, not in the app's icon, which is fine. Window management is a very strong suit in that Cosmic Alpha, and it will be in the final version of the Cosmic Desktop. You have all these features that mix and match really well and let you really interact with Windows exactly how you want. You could say Cosmic is stellar in that regard. Okay, I'll stop with the star-based puns. Now, in terms of theming, Cosmic will be less themable than GNOME, but at the same time a bit more themable than GNOME by default. What I mean is, do not expect to use entire themes that modify every single window button, title bar shape, and controls. Don't expect a theme engine. On the other hand, by default, Cosmic has more theming options than GNOME, because GNOME only offers you light or dark mode and an accent color if you don't have GNOME tweaks. And Cosmic lets you change all the colors that you want. You have the usual light and dark mode and accent colors from a palette or with a color picker. And this color will be used for the selected items, the color of controls and toolbar icons, and for the window hint. But then you can change the other colors. You can change the window background color, the color of containers, so the sidebars and the options popovers. You can change the hint of the interface text, the tint of the controls, and the color of the hint for the active window if you want it to be different from your accent color. This lets you make really beautiful and really atrocious things, but since the desktop uses hints and various tints to tint various colors from the base one that you picked, it tends to always be legible by default, unless you voluntarily try and make it illegible. Personally, I'm really happy that the Reset to Default button exists at the bottom of the settings pages, because I was not able to make anything that looked remotely as good as the default dark theme with the default accent color that they use in this version of Cosmic. And yeah, my graphical skills are just not up to snuff for this kind of stuff. Remember my Linux drawing? That's what I've been working with my entire life in terms of graphical skills. Other options let you change the shape of the controls, rounded squares, and pure squares. These settings will apply to the buttons in the interface, the selected elements in sidebars, the window corners, the docks corners, and everything like that. I think the rounded setting isn't really fully finished. The docks background looks really weird with it. The rounded square felt better to me. You can also change the size of the active window hint and the gaps between tiled windows in auto tiling mode. And as the cherry on top, you get the ability to change the icon theme as an experimental feature and to apply your color theme to GNOME apps, including libadwaita and Flatpak apps. That's not turned on by default, meaning that some default PopOS apps will not ship with the right theme and look, because Cosmic comes with a bunch of GNOME apps by default. And before you ask, no, KDE applications will not be themed in this first alpha in the same way as GNOME apps. And that's only because KDE has a lot more potential interface elements that are used in a lot more different ways, meaning that defining a specific color for a specific element is really not that easy, but they want to do it in the end. Finally, let's look at the applications. Cosmic doesn't come with a lot here. They have a file manager, an app store, a settings app, a terminal, a text editor, and that's it. The rest is either Firefox or Thunderbird or GNOME apps. I would expect most distros will choose which apps they want to ship alongside the default Cosmic ones. The App Store is nothing crazy. It works with apps from the PopOS repos and with Flatpaks as well. FlatHub is turned on by default on that PopOS alpha, and this app handles system and app updates and installing apps. That's about it. You have all the basic info, but it's nothing like what you would find in Discover or GNOME software. You can just pick the source of install, but you cannot see application permissions, links to the developer's website or for funding or to the source code. You cannot see verification status for FlatHub apps or anything like that. It is a very bare bones first alpha version of an app store, and that's fine. If those features aren't present in the final stable version, I will make fun of it then, but for now it's fine. The terminal is a bit more advanced. It actually has a menu bar, which is a thing Cosmic apps tend to have. They sort of mix the title bar, the menu bar, and the toolbar in one giant header bar that has all the options, and I like it. The terminal has themes, profiles, it lets you split the current terminal, it supports tabs, it can even be semi-transparent. It's a good terminal app for most people. The text editor will be fine as well. It does have some development-oriented features, like tab width settings for indentation, or a project view for navigating a directory. It has Git management features baked in, but it will not replace your favorite IDE anytime soon. Finally, the file manager is very bare bones for now. It does support tabs, it has a sidebar, you get a grid view and a list view, the ability to show hidden files, and a few view settings, but that's it. You cannot archive files into zips or tar.gz, you don't have a split view, you don't have a terminal integrated, you don't have any side panels you can display. It's more Nautilus than Dolphin for now. And even then, GNOME's Nautilus has more features than Cosmic's file manager, and I'm not docking any points for that. It's normal, it's an alpha. I cannot stress this enough. All of these applications and the current state of the desktop do not represent the final state of Cosmic or its applications. It is an alpha version. Finally, the settings. You do have a few cool things in here, like support for fractional scaling through Wayland, so real fractional scaling, not that blurry mess that X11 does. You have performance profiles, you have supposedly hybrid graphics options, but these did not show up for me on my hybrid graphics laptop. Maybe it detected it was a tuxedo device and decided it did not want to enable these features on a competitor's laptop. You also have the ability to change keyboard shortcuts and the language. You can disable mouse acceleration, you can move to natural scrolling, because why would you ever not use that on a touchpad, and a few other things. Now obviously these settings are a work in progress, some pages are missing, some features are missing, but in terms of design philosophy, Cosmic will be closer to GNOME than to KDE, as in they will decide for every single option and feature if it really needs to be in there. They already have support for more settings than what they show in the pages, and these settings are all available as text files at configs that you can modify yourself, and they also split the current state of the desktop and the configuration file, meaning that you can just copy-paste these config files on other devices without risking to break the state of your desktop on a specific machine, which is better than how KDE or GNOME handle any of this. But don't expect to see every single option that KDE has in Cosmic. It's going to be closer to GNOME than to KDE in that regard. Okay, so that's it for this first look at the alpha, and a bunch of features are still missing, like HDR, variable refresh rate, anything related to accessibility, semi-translucency in parts of the interface with a blur or a frosted glass effect. You don't have a lot of animations that still need to be baked in. You don't have any touchpad gestures apart from navigating the workspaces. There's a lot missing here. And this is an alpha, that's normal. It's the very first release they deemed ready enough to even show to the public, so of course it lacks a bunch of stuff. Most of these features will be addressed for the second alpha or for the final release. And if you're wondering how long this will take, remember that building this shell and all its first apps took 2 years. That's 2 years to pick Rust as the language, to pick the iced toolkit and expand it to have the base for your desktop, writing libcosmic, which is how they handle widgets, writing an entire Wayland compositor, an entire shell, and a bunch of applications as well. It is a relatively short time period to build all of this. Now, other important tidbits. This is a Wayland-only desktop. It doesn't and very likely never will support X11 in any shape or form. It's a modern, new desktop environment. It is not going to support the legacy system that everyone else is trying to ditch. Cosmic will get yearly feature drops, so not twice a year like GNOME or KDE, and they already have contacts with various distros to see if Cosmic could be packaged. Fedora seems the most active right now, but there are third-party efforts from individuals for NixOS, Arch, and others. So why does Cosmic matter as a project? Well, first, it is the first Wayland-only / Wayland-first desktop environment we've seen, meaning it's the only project not encumbered by having to maintain compatibility with X11 or to maintain any form of legacy X11 code, which is really nice. Second, it's made by System76, which is a company selling hardware first and software on that hardware second, meaning that they need to build PopOS and Cosmic in accordance to what their consumers that buy their hardware actually want, meaning they have a very different incentive in terms of which features they want to add and the prioritization of things than a community-run project like GNOME or KDE, where most work is either from volunteers or paid by specific companies for their own needs. Here, they're gonna try and serve consumers' needs, meaning that their priorities might be very different, and the way they listen to how people use their stuff is going to be very different. And also, it is also open source, meaning that they cannot just say no to everything, they could get forked at any point, everything is visible, anyone can contribute, and we're already seeing some third-party applications. This makes Cosmic unique, in my opinion. For now, this uniqueness isn't really visible in use, because what System76 did is basically catch up to the state of GNOME-based Cosmic, not much more. But the foundation seems very solid, and I would be surprised if in a year or two this thing wasn't considered the default desktop that you would recommend to anyone. And of course, only time will tell. In the meantime, the alpha ISO of PopOS 24.04 with the Cosmic Alpha should already be available or will be in a few hours, so grab it, give it a whirl. Just remember that it doesn't support software rendering, you need hardware acceleration, so if you want to run it in a VM, make sure that you use something like QEMU or GNOME boxes. Those should work properly, but VirtualBox might not. Personally, I really like what I saw in it. I think Cosmic has a great future. The first alpha didn't blow me away, but I see in which ways this could really become the default desktop for a lot of people in the future. Anyway, this will conclude the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, you know what to do. Click all the usual YouTube buttons to make the video more visible on the YouTubes and the internets and whatever else. And if you really enjoy the channel, there are links in the description to support it, and you'll get some cool perks in the process. So, thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!